Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Welcome back to another installment of Game Over Calgary. My name is Matt DeMille, and I am the host for tonight's post-game show following the Flames and Kraken game at the Scotiabank Saddledome. Flames are now on a 2-week break for the Four Nations tournament, and they didn't really end in the way I'm sure they all wanted to end, kind of head into their halfway season mark vacations with a win to kind of help snap what was a little bit of a losing skid. And of course, in a matter of 7 minutes and an overtime period, what could have been a pretty happy night for the Flames organization was more of a somber one, if you call it, as the Flames drop a 3-2 loss in overtime to the Seattle Kraken after what was a pretty tough mental collapse that we saw in the third period. Obviously, the Flames looked, I kind of felt like tonight was more of like a sleepy Saturday night game. It felt like it really just seemed like both teams, at least to start, kind of knew the 2-week hiatus for the Four Nations was on the horizon. And it seemed, as I said, at the start of the game, and I would say through the first at least 30 minutes of the game, it seemed a little quiet, lackluster, and just devoid of much of any kind of intensity. And obviously that ramped up as the game went on. Unfortunately, the Flames, as I did say, dropped that one in overtime, with their record now dropping to 26, 21, and 5 for a fifth place spot in the Pacific Division, while the Kraken improved to a record of 24, 29, and 4. I believe that still keeps them 7th in the Pacific, but they bring home a valuable 2 points over a Pacific Division rival. And now they take a lead in the season series against the Flames, up 2-1 with 1 game left on the schedule. It seems like every time these two teams meet, it's a pretty tight, pretty highly contested game that marks the third straight game between the two teams with a goal differential, or with just a goal separating them. Obviously, the Flames lost on October 19th, 2-1 in overtime to the Kraken. Got back with the win just last week, a 3-2 win in Seattle, and then tonight's a 3-2 overtime loss. We're going to break down everything we saw in tonight's game, as the Flames, as I said, I'm going to be saying all show, enter a 2-week hiatus for the Four Nations. But before we do, it's time to shift into Hyperdrive Hockey and get ready to have some fun with your news source for all the biggest stories in hockey, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and damn fun atmosphere that will drive debates, make you think, and more. Join Max Van Hoot, Daphne Malbouf, and Kevin Laramie every Monday and Thursday for your fill on the hockey world. Watch on YouTube on the Game Over Network channel, or subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. Head to our websites, thegameovernetwork.com, for more. Matt C, back in the chat. Appreciate you joining for another show. It's always a joy to kind of have you on and chat with you. The worst part of that was still getting a loser's point. Yeah, I think it depends where your mentality is. I know we've, in our past chats, you mentioned the opportunity of the Flames not regaining, they still technically haven't lost it, but their first round pick this year that could potentially go to Montreal, and of course a loser's point. Somehow, some way, it brings them 1 point up in the standings. Whether you like to see it or not, that, is a big factor in the Flames either playoff race or would you call it a race for the bottom 10 spots in the NHL. But either way, I don't think anybody really went home with that outcome, whether you were wanting a Flames win or you wanting to kind of embrace the tank. And it seemed like everything was smooth sailing for Calgary, right up until that 7-minute mark left in the third. And it's just like, it didn't seem like, it was pretty clear that it's like, hey, we're 7 minutes away from a 2-week holiday where we can head to Mexico, wherever, just a hot, sunny destination. And it's like, hey, we're almost there. And that ended up biting them in the butt a bit, with them kind of taking their hands off the wheel, and Seattle being like, hey, vacation's 7 minutes away, but we have the opportunity to make get our vacation started in the right way. And they, the Flames took the foot off the gas, and that was the perfect time for Seattle to kind of jump on it. Obviously, that first goal to kind of start the Seattle Kraken comeback, scored by Shane Wright, was a bit of a weird bounce that I don't necessarily blame Dustin Wolf for, or really anybody on the Flames. It just kind of hit a stick and it landed on Shane Wright's tape, and he kind of just made no mistake of it. Maybe there should have been a little bit more pressure from the defense to kind of get a stick on it sooner, but it was just a weird bounce that ended up in the back of the net, kind of something where it's like, all right, like they're one goal away, let's try and dial it in. And 2 minutes later, somebody that I will blame for a egregious Jonathan Huberdeau giveaway that led to an Andre Burakovsky goal. And I also think in that game tying goal for the Flames, that was, something that Dustin Wolf would want back. Like, he got most of that with the puck, with his glove, and that puck kind of just skittered on by. So while it was completely on Huberdeau's end for giving up a muffin like that with, one guy back and 2 Seattle Kraken pressuring, and he kind of gives up on the blue line, that's something that you teach since, you're a Timbit, that you can't really do. And he got caught for that, and they made the most of their opportunities. And then, of course, sealing the deal in overtime was Matty Beniers on the power play for the Kraken after quite a polarizing, quite a interesting call by the officiating, who called the hook on, I believe it was Morgan Frost. I was chatting with a friend of ours on the Game Over Discord server. They tuned in for the latter half of the overtime. They saw that call go the Flames way, go the Kraken way, and we're really questioning whether that was really a hook. And if you ask me, I don't think that was much of a hook, and I think that was a makeup call on a cross-check that the Flames committed on Vince Dunn maybe 30 seconds before that should have been called in the moment. And got somehow, some way got missed, and it seemed like more of a makeup call, which, something that I don't necessarily believe. You got to make that call in the moments. If not, you make a mistake, and you can't necessarily give the team the advantage with a makeup call. But either way, I think one way or another, the Flames would have found themselves killing in overtime, and they, in that first period, I thought they killed a 5-on-3 plus an extra 2 after that, and the penalty kill was looking good through the first 20 and didn't have to get tested in overtime, and obviously that's where the Kraken capitalized. Carter Burnson, God, they suck right now. They are not looking good. 3-game losing streak. If you count an overtime loss tonight. Not necessarily the greatest mentality you want to go in heading into vacation or not summer vacation, but a bit of a 2-week hiatus. But you can also make the argument that, is this the perfect time for a 2-week break for the Flames, where it's like, hey, we're not playing very good. We're tired. Maybe we're banged up. Maybe we're just kind of just emotionally, mentally, physically drained. Like, I don't know. This kind of seems like a really good opportunity for the Flames to reset, recharge their batteries. And we all know kind of the schedule of death that is, approaching in end of February, early March, and a 2-week break before they head out east and play just about every Eastern Conference juggernaut, back to back to back to back to back. It seems like a pretty good time for the Flames to kind of rest and recover. Anand, hi Matt C, and Carter. Anand are one of our other talented Game Over Calgary hosts. Glad you're in the chat tonight. Hope you, enjoyed the game tonight and you're enjoying your Saturday. Appreciate you jumping on tonight's post-game show. Gotta wonder why Wolf has had 3 straight games while Dan sits after a pretty decent game against Seattle. Yeah, I think that's a really good segue into the first period of tonight's show, and that is kind of tonight's coaching decisions by Ryan Huska and the rest of the Flames management. And from top to bottom, we saw changes from the forward group to the defense core, and of course the goaltending. I guess you didn't see changes, but it was maybe on a night where you expected to see a change after Dustin Wolf playing the last 2, dropping the last 2. Can't necessarily say that those 2 losses should be credited to him specifically. However, for a young goaltender who's maybe, if you want to call it being in a rut, is this a good opportunity where it's like, hey, again, Carter in the chat as well, the Dan Vladar being pretty consistent against Seattle and playing pretty well against Seattle just less than a week ago, and then the decision not to go back to him. And I think I was listening to Sportsnet on the TV today while I was kind of prepping for tonight's show, and they said, obviously, Wolf might be a little run down. He's kind of getting weighed down from, as I said last show, just the consistency of playing NHL games so consistently. He's at 33 starts this year, and this seemed like a night where it's like, hey, we're at the end of this kind of tough stretch that we've been through. After tonight, you're on a 2 week break. The best goaltender, it seemed like Ryan Huska kind of felt like tonight was an opportunity to put the best goaltender, regardless of just past games against Seattle. Wolf has been the better of the two, and it's like, yeah, I know you've been riding him and putting him, giving a lot of starts down the last couple of weeks here, and maybe he's being worn down, but at the same time, heading into tonight, it seemed like Wolf was the Flames' best opportunity in between the pipes to, really just kind of give this team the best opportunity at winning. And I think that's kind of what the mentality was. But again, the other side of the thing is like, hey, again, two straight losses with Wolf in net, not necessarily something that you want to blame him for, but hey, let's give him an extra 2 days worth of break and give Dan the start even after, especially considering that he was in net when the Kraken or the Flames last beat the Kraken less than a week ago. And, I think that should have been the decision to be made, but I think that also speaks volumes into how much faith that this Flames coaching staff puts in a guy like Dustin, where it's like, hey, we know you're tired, we know you're run down, but we know you can bring you can get us the wins and you can get us the performances to put us in the spot to win, and we want you to do that tonight. And I thought he was really well. I thought he had a really strong game tonight, minus that goal to tie, or that tied the game up late in the third. As I said, that kind of went off his glove, and one he will be wanting back for sure. But the other two, again, I don't necessarily think they're ones that you can blame him for and really credit this loss to him. And neither is that something that has been happening this season. Matt C, we're 2-6 now since Ball went down. It's been tough since he's been out with an injury. And it just, that shows, how I kind of said a few times over the course of the season, it kind of felt like he was a dark horse and more of not an underdog, but kind of a unsung hero on that blue line, where it's like, hey, when he's in the lineup, he's not doing flashy stuff every single night. He's not your Uyghur, your Anderson, but he's being that Mr. Consistent on the back end, where it's like, hey, they're just starting to realize how much that this defensive core is kind of bleeding. And again, you saw the line, like the parents tonight, we had Solovyov from the Wranglers up, Miramanov in, and of course, we saw Solovyov come in because Joel Hanley's expecting the birth of his second child and is away with his family, and obviously congratulations to him, and that's an exciting time in their lives that it's totally fair and totally expected that he's going to miss some time. But because of that, there was some pretty big gaps in the defensive troops, and Kevin Ball's absence has not helped, but Anand as well. Hopefully he is back after the break, and I think again, going back to how important I think this 2 week break is, while it does recharge the batteries, give this team a reset, you come out of this 2 week break and you could potentially have Kevin Ball and Connor Zary both back skating and playing come puck drop on, I believe it's the 23rd that the Flames next game is too. So there's several kind of fronts that can potentially help the Flames following this break. My thought is Flames has thought Wolf has had winning ways in him, but now I wonder workload has gotten to him. Yeah, I agree. I think again, Anand in the chat, I spoke a lot about it in the stream on Thursday night, when you saw him kind of laboring after a few saves against the Avalanche. And, you again, there's that argument where it's like, hey, he's only 23 years old. Is this workload finally catching up to him and not something he's necessarily used to? And then it's like, hey, let's kind of protect that healthiest side of him, and let's not keep starting or throwing starts his way. And again, that's why I was a little surprised to see Wolf back in the pipes and not Vladar tonight. And again, that was one change that didn't happen that surprised us. But Ryan Huska, one game left before a 2-week break, he put the entire forward core in the blender as well, seeing some pretty some lines I really liked and I was super stoked to see, and then some other ones I kind of had my head scratching at, and I was interested to see how things went. Of course, the two big shuffles in the lines that I was really interested in seeing was Matt Coronado up on the top line with Jonathan Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri. I thought that line looked good. They didn't stand out in the wrong way. I definitely think, I didn't see too much from Coronado's side of things, but again, Huberdeau and Kadri both looked good for the most part tonight. They connected for a goal in that third period that I thought was a pretty nice feed from Huberdeau that found Naz for his 19th of the year. Their chemistry is still going strong, and I think it's been tough with, Pospisil getting demoted to the fourth line and kind of trying to find, especially with the additions of Frost and Farabee, kind of injecting them into the lineup and just generating a sense of chemistry with them. And I thought this was the time that Coronado he's been playing really well on that second/third line with Coleman and Backlund, and he 110% deserved a bit of a promotion onto the first line tonight. And I think, are we going to see that down the road? I think it's tough to say. I think with Zari potentially coming back, we might see him kind of be thrown back up into the top two lines. Same thing with Farabee too. I think the Ryan Huska is still trying to figure out, try and get something to stick with the new guys. And again, the second line that I was really interested in seeing tonight was the combination of Sharangovich, Frost, and Farabee on that third line. And of course, Frost and Farabee were found on a 2-on-1-2. I believe, oh my goodness, was it the first goal of the night? Where's my notes? Yes, the first goal of the night went to Morgan Frost on a 2-on-1 with Farabee, where he tucked his second as a Flame and 13th of the season, and it was a really good start to kick off the second period for the Flames. So I feel like they kind of had they reignited their chemistry, and I thought that was a really smart, really smart move by Huska to kind of be like, hey, again, one game left before the break. Let's just kind of stick with what we're used to. Frost Farabee have played the last couple of years together. Let's throw those two guys together. And of course, Sharangovich, who's been quite snake bitten and is struggling this year. Let's give him some new faces to play with and see how that goes. And I was impressed. I thought Frost had a bit of a jump to him. Of course, he took that penalty in overtime that led to the game-winning goal for Seattle. But besides that, I thought he looked like he was skating pretty hard tonight. There was definitely some pep in his step, and I think that showed that he started overtime with Rasmus Andersson and Yegor Sharangovich as well. So kudos to them. I think I wanted to kind of bring up the concept of like, hey, like, these two guys haven't necessarily clicked since joining the Flames, and is this the time to kind of panic, and is the panic meter kind of rising with those two guys? And I absolutely don't think so. I think this is their fifth or sixth game playing with the Flames, and obviously it takes a while to develop some kind of chemistry, as well as just some comfortableness with the lines, the strategy, everything that makes a team, and the what defines them as the style of play, that kind of stuff. It doesn't take 2-3 games to get used to it. It's going to take upwards of 10-20 to really kind of find your place and how you work with this new dynamic you're used to. So I definitely think it's not time to panic with those two guys yet, and they've already found the back of the net. Frost once, Farabee twice, and obviously while they're not immediately performing on the score sheets, I think it's just a matter of time, and you kind of need to just familiarize themselves with the new guys in the locker room as well too, and just again form some kind of bond, some kind of chemistry with those guys too. So but yeah, I thought it was a bold move by Huska to kind of jumble up the lines with one game, and instead of just like, hey, like let's just get through this, run whatever we want to run. And then instead today he's like, you know what, like let's just throw stuff at a wall and see if anything sticks. And then we have 2 weeks to kind of think and examine and, look at, the first 60% of the season, 65% of the season, see what worked well. And then really kind of down the line, as you get back at the end of February, really start to drive home what worked, and try and get the chemistry and the offensive production from that standpoint. So it was nice to see. Of course, Dryden Hunt upgraded to the second line along with Coleman and Backlund. I thought he didn't look out of place. I thought he had his chances. I'm just seeing Anand in the chat. Backlund is one player that definitely needs the reset. I 100% agree. I mean, I love Backlund. I don't want to speak ill will towards him and stuff, because he's been such an integral piece on this Flames roster for, well over a decade. But I don't necessarily want to say this is something where it's like his age is catching up to him, but I think there has been a pretty drastic drop, maybe not performance wise, but you could just tell definitely the last couple weeks he's been struggling quite a bit, whether it is just kind of wearing down from yet another season of this kind of type of grind and stuff. And I definitely agree with you, Anand. He's another guy that is really going to benefit for 2 weeks off, just, relaxing, hanging out with family, that type of thing. But yeah, that's kind of what I thought of tonight's game, and of course the decisions to kind of jumble up the lines and what we saw, and I guess in Wolves in the goaltending discussion, not to change up the lines. And I was interested to see whether it would serve to benefit the Flames, and I thought it did through the first 50 minutes, and then they kind of just took their foot off the gas, and it's bit them in the butt after that. But 2 weeks to kind of reset and get back to the drawing board, see what worked well. And then again, they kick off the last stretch of the regular season with a game in San Jose on January 23rd. Now we're going to switch kind of topics and dive into a different aspect of tonight's game that was pretty alarming, and in that last 7 minutes in the third was pretty concerning, and it brings up a really good discussion about, the comparison between the Flames and other playoff teams, and that that level that I don't think the Flames are necessarily there yet. But before we do, obviously, if you're looking for ways to help an upstart media company employing over 30 journalists and analysts across Canada, if you have a few spare bucks kicking around, you get to head to our Patreon page at patreon.com/the Game Over Network. There you'll find multiple tiers featuring different rewards and goodies for helping us grow. There's extra access, exclusive looks behind the scenes, Discord benefits, merch discounts, opportunities to give us feedback, and you can join us for special shows live where you can interact with hosts as we launch more ways to improve your experience. If you're not able to spare a few dollars, we have a free tier available, so don't miss out. If you really want to help us, make sure to click like and subscribe on YouTube, rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, and share our work on your social media of choice. That's patreon.com/the Game Over Network for tantalizing goodies. Now, as we head into the second period of tonight's show, again, I think the biggest thing that I wanted to take, or one of the bigger things that I wanted to take away from tonight's game, is just the Flames' inability to play a full 60. And this isn't something that is recent developments. It's something that's plagued them for not only this season, but seasons in the past. And I think this year, if the Flames are going to want to make the playoffs at the midway through April type thing, I think what's going to end up biting them, along with several other topics that we've touched on the rest of the season, is just their inability to play a full 60. And it we've seen flashes of it here and there. I'm not saying the last 55 games the Flames have played, they haven't played a full 60, but more often than not, there seems to be one period in a game or even a shift that there's just this mental defensive lapse from the team, and it's coming to bite them. It's coming to pay them back. And tonight it seemed like they were playing 53 minutes of a relatively decent game, and then it's just again, they had vacation on the mind and just collapsed. But it seems like you can count you ran out of the times, like, oh my goodness, I'm losing my train of thought. I just like, the amount of times that I've seen the Flames not be able to produce a full 60 minutes of a game, and it's kind of come to haunt them. I've lost count of the times, and this is just another installment of what is become a really big developing story. And I think, if you look at playoff teams, teams that are kind of the locks for the playoffs this year and in playoffs past, they have that, mental resiliency to play a full 60, and that's something that the Flames have been lacking. And then it just makes you think, it's like, why is that? And I think it's so tough to say. But it feels like there's, I don't know if you want to call it leadership, but that kind of experience from a, long-term veteran type guy that has done this before and want to lead by example. They know what it takes to make the playoffs, that kind of stuff. When you compare like the Colorados of the world that have plenty of experience of making the playoffs, or, Toronto's, like guys that the Flames have played consistently, those guys know what it takes to, make the playoffs. And of course, with that is being consistently playing full 60 right down to the last minute. And I don't know if it's, a lack of leadership or maybe a lack of inexperience in the playoffs, but that's something that I feel like has been haunting the team. And, I'm afraid to say, like, if the Flames are to be in the playoff hunt, this inability to play a full 60 might, be the breaking point as to whether they make the playoffs or not. And again, there's several outlying factors about them making the playoffs, but I think this is just one big thing that was really put into the spotlight tonight. And of course, Carter in the chat, Flames need an upgrade, preferably left D-man, left side D-man. Oh my goodness, my brain is just fried today. I feel like I've said that a million times, but either way, I think that's another aspect to what's kind of been hurting them. And we mentioned again, the absence of Kevin Ball and even Joel Hanley, who's kind of been pretty consistent as the bottom couple pairings on the defensive side of things. I think come trade deadline, that is going to be a guy the Flames, or that's going to be something the Flames are going to be looking at upgrading if they have the opportunity to at the deadline. Again, I think I'm going in circles when I talk about the trade deadline, but I think the right deal needs to come in place for the Flames to make a move of that kind of stature. And I don't know. I mean, the reports coming out lately that like a guy like Noah Dobson in the Islanders, again, I can't remember if he's a left or right side defenseman, but either way, how fitting would it be that the pick that the Flames originally traded to the Islanders in that Travis Hamonic trade from, decades and decades ago, or what seems like what feels like decades ago, the Flames end up getting the guy that they could have potentially drafted in that spot. I don't necessarily know if they're in the hunt for a guy like that, but I also know that, or per the reports I've seen online, the biggest kind of ask from the Islanders for a guy like Noah Dobson is somebody that can be, a top six type forward that can be immediately injected into the lineup for them, because obviously I believe they are kind of in that playoff race as well. I would have to pull up the standings to see, but either way, I can't say that the Flames are in the running for a guy like that. But it would be interesting when you talk about like Flames potentially acquiring a defenseman. He is a expiring RFA at the end of this season. Same thing as Morgan Frost. But I mean, if you look at the player, if you look at the type of player that Noah Dobson is, he's that 25-year-old that you can potentially build your blue line around. For the right price, it's not something I would be. It's something that I would be interested in. And as I said, with the rumors are that the Islanders are looking for more of a full. They're looking for a full timer that can play like almost immediately. And again, they are 4 points out of a playoff spot. I'm just checking right now. But either way, my biggest thing with the Flames is that if they are to do a trade, I don't want them giving up picks, prospects, that type of thing, because they really want to. I want them to build from the ground up and really embrace this rebuild versus retool. And with the Islanders reporting that they potentially want a guy that can immediately be injected into their top six and start producing for them, sounds like they're not necessarily looking for draft capital, or they're not looking for prospects, which, when you think about what the Flames need and what the Islanders need, like, you know what, like, the more and more I think about it, I feel like there could be a deal that could be struck up, but it just depends on the value. Like, I know a guy like Nazem Kadri is kind of rumored to be on the market this year. I don't know if that's the kind of top six forward that you can potentially swing with the Islanders. I feel like that would be really the big name that you could maybe make a deal work. And the Flames are also very loose on cap, so they, like, if they wanted, they could even potentially do some sort of like, bring the, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm trying to look for, cap retention on the Kadri contract as well. I mean, I'm no GM, so take all of that with a grain of salt, but if the Flames are in the market for a defenseman, like, guy like Dobson, I feel like could actually potentially work for the Flames and for the future of the Flames. I really like the concept of, like, a Dobson with, the Andersons and the Uyghurs, and, hopefully someday, like, a Zane Parekh as well. I think that's the making for a relatively strong blue line. To kind number one, appreciate you in the chat again tonight. Need to save money for Rantanen. Yeah. I mean, I think the bidding war for him is going to be pretty high. At 28 years old, I don't hate the deal. I mean, I'm obviously concerned about those, like, max contracts, and I think that's probably what he would be asking for. So, Mikko Rantanen, paying, 11, $12 million at 28 is a decent contract, but, at the 36-year-old Mikko Rantanen getting paid the same type of money is something that concerns me. But either way, I don't hate it. I think I said that last stream as well. I mean, if you're looking for a guy that's immediately going to kind of inject some offensive prowess and some sort of just a injection of just offense all around that the Flames don't have. And going back to the stream last week, I said the Flames don't necessarily have that elite guy that is capable of taking over games, and they don't have that lack of star power. I mean, obviously there's a benefit to, like, drafting and building up star power within your own organization and through your farm system, and just drafting really well. A guy like Mikko Rantanen will give you that immediate type of impact in the lineup. So, I mean, I think that's something that's going to be a bigger conversation come July and stuff. I don't know if I've necessarily seen any reports that the Flames are potentially in the running for that. But at the same time, I feel like I've been hearing more and more that there might not be some sort of deal between the Canes and him. So that would be interesting to see if he hits the market for sure. And if that's the case, and the Avs are managed to kind of extend and keep Martin Necas around long term, that might be, you can make the argument that it's the steal of the century for the Avs as well. So nice move from them if they are able to make that work. But I mean, I guess keep your eyes peeled for Mikko Rantanen. Takai number one is really hoping that he finds himself in the sea of red come free agent frenzy. So, I mean, again, I feel like I say it a lot, but only time will tell if something like that can happen. But, interesting conversation to be had nonetheless. Now, I guess, like, I've been saying it for a while in the tonight's stream, but again, Flames head into a 2-week hiatus because of the Four Nations tournament. Really good opportunity to reset the batteries, recharge, reset, all that. But when their break is up, they're back from Mexico, they're back on whatever kind of trip holiday they did on February 23rd against San Jose. It's going to be business as usual, and there are going to be expectations to set, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in period 3 is what do I think are the Flames' expectations, and what we can expect from the Flames and what they can expect from themselves in the last half of or not last half, I would say maybe last 40% of the 2024-25 regular season. But before we do, if you're enjoying the show so far, you probably want more of this, right? Well, make sure you hit the like button on this video, click subscribe on our channel, and make sure you check the notification bell so you're alerted when we go live. If you're listening to our podcast, please give us a 5-star rating or even write a positive review. If you really like us, make sure to follow us on your favorite social media platforms. You can find the Game Over Network on Blue Sky at thegameovernetwork.com, on TikTok and Twitter at Game Over NHL, on Instagram, Threads, and LinkedIn at Game Over Network. You can also find myself on Twitter and Blue Sky. I can't necessarily remember my account names off the top of my head, and apologies for that, but it is in the link of this YouTube channel or YouTube description. And of course, it's just Matt DeMille, I believe it's just Matt DeMille for Blue Sky, and Matthew _DeMille or DeMille _Matthew on Twitter. Again, I should probably write down. But as well, if you want to interact with me on that, you're more than welcome to reach out, send me a follow. And I tweet occasionally. Besides that, you can also find me as well as the rest of the Game Over Calgary staff on Discord too, so you can join our Discord to come chat with us there as well. I really recommend. We're active during the Flames games, and if you just ever want to come shoot some questions our way or just chat about anything related, it's a really good platform to kind of meet not only Game Over Calgary but the entire Game Over Network and our audience on there as well. And you can also find us at thegameovernetwork.com, where you can sign up for our upcoming newsletter. Now, as I said, the third period of tonight's show, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we can kind of expect from the Flames back from the break. And I think it's kind of a conversation that we've been having over the entire course of the season, and I think that's really, are you a playoff, I wouldn't say contender, but are you like a wild card team looking to make the playoffs, or are you a team hoping to pick in the bottom 10? And we've really kind of, we keep hammering home this kind of argument where it's like the Flames are just in this weird spot where it's like one night it's like, you know what, they're playing good enough that I think they can make the playoffs, and the other nights it's like, oh my goodness, maybe I wouldn't say a night like this, but we've seen nights where it's like, how are these guys still in the running for the playoffs? And I think expectations back from the break is picking one or the other, of course, like the team in theory are going to put their best foot forward, every game. And I think that's going to come from, the answer is going to come from more of a Craig Conroy standpoint. So maybe not necessarily expectations for the team, because at this point we don't necessarily know what team we're going to get from the players themselves. But I think this expectations is, I'm going to set more on the shoulders of Craig Conroy, in the sense where it's like, when we come back from the break, February 23rd, there needs to be some sort of like apparent decision as to whether the Flames are going to be in the hunt for a top 10 pick, or if the Flames are going to be hunting for wild card 2. And that's going to come from obviously what we're going to see at the trade deadline and stuff. But I what I don't want to see is this, like, hey, let's go out and get this guy, but at the same time, we want to be trying to get that 10th overall pick, and I feel like we've been seeing a lot of that, where it's like I'm just on the fence as to what is really behind the curtain. Where are the expectations and where are we really headed? And time is running out, and this 2-week break is really where I think Conroy needs to sit down and be like, hey, we picked up Frost and we picked up Farabee, and yes, are they going to inject a little bit of life into a team hunting for the playoffs? Yes, but I think in the overarching scheme of things, they are the guys that the Flames are going to, they're core pieces into what can be a rebuild for the Flames. With them being 24 or 25 years old, they aren't getting out of the league anytime soon. And those are really, really important pieces to have when you're rebuilding, because obviously you don't want a team full of 18, 19-year-olds. You're going to need your veteran leadership. When your Zane Parek's are in their 23, 24 kind of ages, you have the veterans in Farabee and Frost who are in their 28, 29, 30. Again, I probably butchered the math on that as well. But again, there really needs to be a definite line, in the weeks leading up or the weeks after this kind of 2-week break, where it's like, hey, I need to see you either embrace being a team running in the playoffs and let's just throw that first round pick to Montreal, or it's like, hey, let's stick to what we thought we were going to be at the start of the season, and that is a rebuilding team looking to selling guys off at the deadline. By whatever day the trade deadline is, early March, we need to start selling the assets that we expected to sell off this season, and kind of let's drop back from this playoff race and potentially secure this 10th spot. Of course, picking up a point tonight kind of hurt, but from what it seems like, and again, I would have to check the standings again, the Flames aren't too far away from being a top or bottom 10 team. They're currently in 17th, which is such a Flames position to be in. And I believe 22nd, they're 5 points ahead of the 22nd ranked Montreal Canadiens. So there is light in terms of this 10th, this first round pick to Montreal isn't necessarily out of the option. Matt C, I'd love us to play playoffs. I just don't think the team is good enough to get there. If that's the case, bottom 10. Daryl Sutter, full send. I reckon we'll be out of it by the time the deadline hits. See, that's the thing. Like, even between two people in the chat, like there's two different contrasting arguments, and they're so polar opposites from each other, and it's just a really difficult situation that the Flames have yet again put themselves in, where it's like, hey, like, this roster on paper, I mean, barring Jonathan Huberdeau having a really, really strong season, this roster does not seem like a contending team. But at the same time, they're better than the bottom 10. So there needs to be a definite move one way or another come, end of February, early March. And that's something that I think it just needs to be stopped beating around the bush. And again, I'm not, giving Conroy, trouble for that trade with Frost and Farabee. I think that is... I think that is as perfect of a trade as you can get for a team that is not only contenders but also sellers. And I don't necessarily know if a trade like that is also going to fall in the lap of Conroy again. Maybe, again, I'll circle back to this, maybe a potential agreement with the Islanders and Dobson. But again, you would be giving up a guy like, again, all hypotheticals, but a guy like Kadri for a guy like, in return for a guy like Dobson, who is also on the injured reserve shelf as well too. So yeah, I think time is running out for the Flames management to pick one side or the other. And come March 7th, I don't know why I just threw March 7th out, but whenever the trade deadline is, I don't want the Flames to be stuck in a position where it's like, oh crap, we didn't do anything to really help add and bolster this team to the point that maybe we are a good enough team now that we can potentially secure a spot in the playoffs. And it's, we didn't sell off, we didn't sell off assets properly or well enough to really kind of expedite more of a rebuild. And I feel like that's happened in seasons past where it's like, okay, well, it's like there's two different ways you can swing, and somehow by doing nothing, you are, stuck in this realm of forever mediocrity that we Flames fans so love to put it. Daryl Cook, Connie Cook. You can make the argument that Conroy hasn't lost a trade yet. I think there is a lot to be said just looking ahead in the future and really looking back on those trades. But, you can cook by being a seller, and you can also cook by being a contender. So, I'm all on board for the Connie Cook train, but I just want to know which direction this train is headed. And I think that's kind of my mentality and what I hope to expect, or what I need to expect from the Flames is a definite change of direction in one way or another, instead of kind of just, chugging down this line of mediocrity. We are at the 46-minute mark of tonight's show, so I think this is the perfect time to enter the Q&A section. It kind of has been an open Q&A section, but any more thoughts, ideas, concepts, questions about the Flames or the NHL, or, hey, the Four Nations tournament is right around the corner. We can have a quick chat about that. But before we do, Obviously, I just wanted to plug our merch apparel line one more time because it is that fantastic. And of course, there's no better way to support something you love by then repping it on yourself. Game Over's apparel line has dropped, and with 3 unique designs. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you just need another coffee and a toque to get through the winter, we have you covered. Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code on stream, which I will pull up any second now. There we go. Use the QR code on stream now and take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. I picked up a few shirts myself for Christmas, and I really love them. I wear them as much as I can just to get the Game Over brand out there too. So, of course, if you are interested in picking up some merch, I highly recommend, because it is a great way to rep, a small business and such a, budding network like this one as well. We're heading in, as I said, the Q&A, so feel free to fire a few questions my way or any thoughts. I guess I can, with the Flames gonna be on a 2-week break, we can kind of break down a little bit about the Four Nations. Of course, the bigger news coming this evening is that Drew Doughty has officially replaced Alex Pietrangelo on the blue line for the Four Nations. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think, there's a strong argument that I don't know if I necessarily like the Drew Doughty pick. I think there are other defensemen, and again, I might be a little bit biased here, but I really like Mackenzie Weegar's game tonight, and I've liked his game quite a bit this season, and I think with Doughty being on the shelf for so long this year with a pretty big injury, and him coming back a week ago, I don't know if the correct move for Canada is to add a guy into that roster. But again, he does have the experience of playing on several Olympic teams, World Cup of Hockey, all that type of thing, so he does have a sense of experience at the national level that very, very few defensemen have. But, the argument, I think, the real big argument is, whether his experience is something to have over a defenseman who is arguably playing better than him at this moment, just based on them having more reps lately and Doughty being on the shelf for so long, and now he's getting thrown into the best tournament or 4-team tournament that the hockey world has to offer. So, only, again, I feel like that's my phrase, only time will tell, but, that's the decision, it's final. But I feel like we should have given, there should have been the Mackenzie Weegar addition, and I think a guy like that who just eats up pucks and plays, he can play both ends of the ice, he can run a power play, and he can also run a penalty kill, either way. It's a guy, McDavid, strong arm, Connor Brown onto the Four Nations team. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I feel like a guy like that has a lot of pull. But I also, I will say this is not going to be a good tournament for Canada. I'm proud to be Canadian, and I'm obviously going to root for them, but I feel like, I feel like they might be the only team that doesn't medal in this tournament, just based on the other rosters and stuff. And obviously, you can't deny the McDavids and the McKinnons of the world, but as Daryl Sutter said, no Sid, no win. And, I don't know if it's been confirmed that he's out, but it's clearly a concern that if he does miss time, Mitch Marner's already saying that it'll be a pretty big absence. I think it's an upper body injury that they've mentioned, but I know a lot of details hasn't been thrown out about exactly what's going on with him. But either way, that's pretty alarming for the Canadians if they're out Crosby too, because, just that chemistry that he's developed with so many guys on this team. He's quite the catalyst on this team, and losing him would be a pretty big, gap in what is arguably, again, I think you just see how this Canadian roster stacks up to some other lines, or sorry, other teams. And sure, you have your A-listers like McDavid and McKinnon and Makar and all those guys, but it's just like, I think the other teams are more thorough. They're built stronger through four lines, and it really is Canada's a tournament to lose. So it might, as it turns out, might be a rough at least 2 months for Canadian hockey at the national level. But again, I'll hit you with my pad in line. Only time will tell. I'm not a I'm not a seer. I don't see into the future, so I can't say, and I could be eating my words come March. But either way, I very, very not optimistic, more on a pessimistic perspective ahead of Four Nations for Canada specifically. And I also think, if you look at the goaltending, I don't necessarily think there's a team that can, with a guy like Connor Hellebuck on the Americans and how well he's been playing this year in Winnipeg. That is a scary, scary sight to see on the other end of the ice. And of course, that American roster is pretty thorough and pretty deep too, with all kinds of A-listers as well. So, if I was a betting man, I think our friends south of the border, in the hockey world could potentially take the first ever Four Nations tournament. But again, time will tell. Flames are back in action, as I said, February 23rd. That is a total of, if I do the math right, 15 days of rest, relaxation, and recharging the batteries. They're back in action for a game at home against the San Jose Sharks before they kick off what we like to call the road trip of death, maybe. I don't want to patent that, but just an absolute potentially train wreck of a road trip for the Flames as they, as I said, play the Sharks on Sunday, February 23rd, and then ship off for a 6-game road trip from hell, playing the likes of Washington, Tampa Bay, Florida, Carolina, Philadelphia, and Dallas, with another homestand against Colorado, followed by a couple games against Toronto, New York, and New Jersey. Of course, there's a few games littered in between there, but the rest and relaxation better be worth it for the Flames, because they are going to get, tested quite a bit, quite frequently right out of the gates, and if they are to make the playoffs, that road trip is going to it's going to have to be pretty successful for the Flames. So, as Takai says in the chat, that road trip will end our season, hypothetically. If history can tell a story sometimes, and how the Flames have fared to, juggernauts of just, Stanley Cup contenders this year, has not looked good for them. And I think a lot of their big flaws show. So to play 5 out of 6 games against teams that, you could potentially see in the Stanley Cup finals, does not bode well for them. But, I'm curious to see how that swing goes for them. And I think that is really going to be the difference maker as to whether the Flames are in the playoffs come April, May, or they are golfing. But make sure you tune into, we're back with our post-game shows on the 23rd and for the rest of the season. So again, appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. It was awesome to get to chat with everybody, Takai, Matt C, Carter, Daryl Sutter, and again, Anand. Make sure to check out when he is hosting for Game Over Calgary as well. Hoping to do a stream with him in the near future, because we haven't done it, or we haven't been doing streams together all too lately. So I'm hoping to get back on the 2-person streams with Anand soon. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your 2-week hiatus from the NHL, and hope Four Nations ends up being a pretty good tourney. I think there's a lot to look forward to in that tournament. So make sure to keep tune into that, and if not, we'll see you back on June 23rd. Appreciate you tuning in to Kai as well. It's always a joy getting to chat with you. So until June 23rd, take care of yourselves, and we will see you guys in the near future.